Shoot the Breeze topic number one. Well, as I say that, Jacadero joins us. Jacadero, how are you this week?
I'm in a good mood. You can hear me, right? I'm in a good mood.
Yes, sir. You in a good mood? Okay. Okay, what happened? Did Bud Crawford wink at you or something like that this week?
I'm moving. So it's a smooth transition, unlike any other move that I've had before. But you guys are funny. I see you, Koku.
All right. Thanks for coming through. As per usual, I guess Buana heard you join. He decided to join too. Buana, how are you this week?
I'm good, Koku. Sorry about the lateness again, brother. Sorry.
That's okay. All good with you?
Yeah. Everything good. The weather is good down here. We had a bunch of rain last week. I think that we was catching a water back in a hurricane or some kind of tropical storm, but it's actually good weather tonight, so I'm good.
All right, good. Thanks for coming through. As usual. So I was just about to get into it. Shoot the Breeze topic number one says, "This is so true," in reference to relationship jackpots. This came with a link. Let me share my screen with you guys. Yeah, this should be it. Make sure you guys could see my screen. There we go. So this takes us to Twitter. And I forgot this judge's name, but we'll listen to what she has to say, and then we'll discuss it.
My husband had 4 kids. Damn. From his first wife. He had no money, but he loved me.
What more do you want from me?
It's a lot in black dating world, and I don't know if it's like this in the white dating world, but it's all about, are you high value? Are you an alpha male? Are you a beta male? What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? It's gotten very superficial. They had this guy named Kevin Samuels.
Listen, man.
And he used to give this, you just tell women, you're too fat, you'll never get anybody.
Yeah.
It's become very adversarial, at least in some areas of the black community, but they're not looking for what we were looking for. They want value, and I wanted companionship. We do so much time on the internet now, we are aggregating everybody else's angst by watching their sad stories, and then we're trying to prove a point, well, I'm high value and I can get this guy and that guy. They're comparing what kind I got, how much, how good I got, how much money I got, how pretty I am, and, is my guy an alpha guy, and I don't date guys with under $100,000. My husband had 4 kids from his first wife. He had no money, but he loved me. And look, I made more money now because I made a guy who made less than I did and was never going to make as much as I did. But he and I ended up doing quite well because he was the brother I needed.
That's a bar.
He couldn't have done it without me, and I couldn't have done it without him. That's when you've hit the jackpot.
That's a bar.
I'll play it one more time because some folks got in late. Let me play it one more time.
My husband had 4 kids from his first wife. He had no money, but he loved me.
What more do you want from me?
It's a lot in black dating world, and I don't know if it's like this in the white dating world, but it's all about, are you high value? Are you an alpha male? Are you a beta male? What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? It's gotten very superficial. They had this guy named Kevin Samuels.
Listen, man.
And he used to give this, you just tell women, you're too fat, you'll never get anybody.
Yeah.
It's become very adversarial, at least in some areas of the black community, but they're not looking for what we were looking for. They want value, and I wanted companionship. We do so much time on the internet now, we are aggregating everybody else's angst by watching their sad stories, and then we're trying to prove a point, well, I'm high value and I can get this guy and that guy. They're comparing what kind I got, how much, how good I got, how much money I got, how pretty I am, and, is my guy an alpha guy, and I don't date guys with under $100,000. My husband had 4 kids from his first wife. He had no money, but he loved me. And look, I made more money now because I made a guy who made less than I did and was never going to make as much as I did. But he and I ended up doing quite well because he was the brother I needed.
That's a bar.
He couldn't have done it without me, and I couldn't have done it without him. That's when you've hit the jackpot.
That's a bar.
Yeah, KW7 just gave me the name Lynn Toler. She used to be a judge on TV. I think she got divorced recently too, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was prior, but sometimes she's doing too much online too. She's online putting her legs behind her ears and all kind of shit. That I think, man, you're like 60. Let's chill on that. But I like what she said here. I'd be curious to see what the jealous. If you're hearing me, you can click the link as well. Join the panel because oftentimes these should bring nuance, require a little bit of layering, so that okay, I can find that a husband just died. My bad. A little bit of nuance, a little bit of layering, where we get some female input on these topics. In general, across the diaspora, all these different Pan-African topics. This is so true. RE, relationship jackpot. Let me hear from Buana on this one. Let me start with you. What say you to this?
No, I think Justice Toler is right. The reality is, bro, in the time that I live on this planet, any man can get any woman they want, regardless of career or money. And that sounds strange to see, but depending on the right day and the right time and your personal confidence in yourself, you know, it's a lot of superficialities as far as relationship and how people talk about it and value this and value that. It don't break down to that. It don't break down that. It break down to you and it break down to the opposite sex. And I see in some judges, some hood dudes, some gangsters, you know. It just depends. And it depends on what you are about. It depends on what that woman is about. It depends on your background. It depends on you all have a mutual commonality between each other. It just depends on so many other things. Just you know, uh, rather than just dollars and cents. Based on where you're coming from. And I think that experience have to teach a lot of people that. But the young people seem to believe and think as long as the person is making six figures, that makes them legitimate. You could make six figures and be beating your woman every day. Many judges or justices on the bench right now, they getting beat up like conch salad, and they make more money than their husband, but they still with them. And relationships are very strange. And uh, Coco was saying, it's very layered. It's not just black and white, and it's not just dollars and cents. You know, so I believe, and I agree with what the Justice Tola had to say here. I think that she's a very, very smart lady. And me personally, I wouldn't marry or I wouldn't necessarily. Meeting a woman with four kids to me is a lot. That's a lot, but that's not a suit that I feel that I could wear. Now, it was her cup of tea, and she was able to have a enduring relationship for a very long time. In fact, when her husband died, she was a wreck. She was an absolute wreck. Now, this is a multi-millionaire now. She was a wreck, because she knew what it takes and in terms of commitment, the cost that relationship to be functional. So what is good for me is not might not necessarily be good for you, but it's good for me. So I I'm very critical with this internet dating, and these people have ideas on what is a good relationship. What is good for you don't ain't necessarily what's good for me. And what's good for me is not necessarily what's good for you. What works for me might not be what works for you. So you can't put a big suit on everyone and say, well, that should be sufficient. That's not always true. Relationships are extremely complicated. But I'll leave it there just to allow Black Steel to have a go.
Yeah,
We still cooking?
I don't know if you guys can hear me,
Okay,
but
I can hear you now.
joint from my phone. Jackador, can you hear me right now?
Yeah. It's getting better, but I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm gonna join from my phone. Buana wasn't able to be heard well, right?
Yeah, Buana was able to. We were able to hear him very well. Yes.
Was Buana able to be heard well?
Yes.
I heard him just fine.
All right. All right, Jackador, you go next while I figure out trying to get on my phone. Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah. I wasn't too familiar with the judge, Miss Toler. I think is her last name. But the Relationship Jackpot. Is it a jackpot? I've never been married, so I'm not 100% sure on if I can speak on this topic itself. But during college, I did have my girlfriend move in with me until that ended. I graduated though. That's all that matters. But one thing is that, for any relationship, respect needs to be there. She touched on a myriad of things dealing with red pill, pink pill nonsense. And that's all like as a woman, I need my man to be 666, 6 figures, 6 foot, and whatever. And then for guys, it's like, hey, I need her to be next to a virgin. And that's here nor there. But the basis of this is that people are just saying that they want to be able to be respected and they want to be able to reciprocate the same respect. Without the respect, a relationship just can't work. And so the jackpot, I think that she's referencing is that her man came into her life when he had 4 kids, but it sounded like he still respected her. And the way that she talked about him, she respected him. So if the respect isn't there, if the respect isn't there, none of this stuff can happen. None of forget everything else. If there's no respect, forget about how much money somebody makes, forget about how tall they are, forget about everything. Yeah. If there's no respect, there's very little on what can happen. I mean, look at it. We see multimillionaires and billionaires getting divorced every year. And I'm not in their relationships, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lack of a relationship or lack of a respect in those relationships. And then, slowly, especially with men, when your woman starts to disrespect you on a consistent basis, you start to mentally check out. And then it's only a matter of time.
That was Jackador's lady calling right then.
Is that her?
With that said, let me hear from Black Steel on this. Black Steel, we'll see you.
So I'm gonna come at this a little different way, right? What I think she's talking about, and this is something I've long noticed, right? She's talking about the commodification of human relations, right? And I say this as a way to kind of put it in perspective, right? When I say commodification, that everything has been assigned a value to it, a price value. Even basic human interaction needs to have a price tag on it, right? So when people are asking for their partner to make a certain amount of money, this is an effect of late stage capitalism, in which profits are no longer as high as they used to. So now everything has been geared to create profit. The dating sites are meant to create people to keep coming back over and over again, right? The person has to make so much money because their only value to you is how much money you make. So everything is seen through the lens of the marketplace. They even have a term, sexual marketplace value. There are 10. She's a 5. She's a 7. He's a 10. He's an 8. He's a 3, right? So everybody is scored, right? But when you put a price tag on something, you automatically devalue it, right? So once you say how much the price is for something, it's no like how much is somebody's life worth? It's priceless. But I said, well, his life worth like $2 million. Okay, but you automatically devalue it. So once what she's talking about is unfortunately many people date with the idea of what can I get out of this? How does this benefit or how does this help me out in the long run? And unfortunately, um, that's how people have been moving for a long time. And I'm not saying that people have to live in poverty, right? People have to live in a cardboard box and you just get by on love. But when you start um, putting people in boxes, like, well, he doesn't make enough money for me, or he's not this, or she doesn't, uh, have this certain thing. And there's one thing for preferences, and that's perfectly fine. But there's a way that this is being done now, in that it dehumanizes people and it devalues people that I have an issue with. So I'm happy that Judge Toler was able to find her true love, because, like she was saying, she wanted love. A lot of people just want their bills paid. They want to live a certain lifestyle. And you as the person don't matter. What matters is what can you do for me? How can you help me achieve my goal of, living this certain lifestyle? And it just it's disgusting because it really does break people down to just, their base common elements. And there's no interest in who you are as a person. Again, I'm not saying you have to live in poverty. I'm not saying you should be with somebody you're not attracted to. But I think that sometimes people are so focused, especially in the U.S., on superficial things that um, nothing else matters. To the point to where if you fall on hard times, they're out, right? There's a situation where somebody lose their job and they can't make the money they used to, and their wife leaves them. You know what I'm saying? Or she does, or you hear it all the time. I'm not going 50-50 with no man. And it's funny that it comes out the United States when over half of Americans live paycheck to paycheck and can't come up with $500 in an emergency. But then you have people who get on social media apps. 'Cause I understand they're speaking to the algorithm, right? And they make these declarations about how they're not going to split bills with anybody. And one girl said, "I'd rather work 2 jobs than go 50-50 with a man." So you rather do 200% and then go 50%. But it's the idea that as a man, you're supposed to provide a certain income, or if you don't make this amount of money, you're not worthy of love and affection from me. So that's just how I see it. It's just a consequence of living in the West and in late stage capitalism. I'll stop there. Thanks.
I
Right.
wanna add
I
to
think that was good insight. I think you nailed it as far as the angle that she was coming at relationships from. I think you nailed it, Black Steel. And I agree with what you said. I know Brian wanted to add something, and I see Cheryl has joined us. By the way, shout out to the matron who's in the chat. Shout out to KW Don 7 and Jose Braun. Oh, yeah, shout out to Brother Bakari who's in the chat as well. Um, and shout out to Icon Fire. Shout out to all of you who pointed out that her husband recently died. She wasn't divorced like I thought. My apologies for that. Real quick, Trigapi on the screen says if you take a communal dynamic, you have to pair people that make sense or train people to come with tangibles. He goes on to say Western dating reflects a people who objectifies the universe. So they objectify relationships. As much as people think black people don't need spirituality, this is exactly why we need it. With that said, Buana, add your thoughts there.
sure quickly, because trigger happy you always taking shots at me. But yeah, this whole thing. Sometimes when I hear the what is $100,000 plus figure to make them to earn that kind of income, you must have to understand that you want there's some unrealistic goals and expectations I feel some people have without considering something. People who make money like that, they work all the time. They work 12 hours, 13, 14 hours a day, you know, easily, easily. They're always working. And the thing is, you will have to decide whether you will have a relationship with a partner or you will have a relationship with the person's money, female or male. And you have to also define what is success to you. Because a man might think in his mind, a success may just be being a great teacher. Now, Black Steel could tell you that even though he makes a substantial amount of money, most teachers don't earn substantial amounts of money. But in his mind, that is success. So are you gonna be willing to be with a partner like that or not? I feel sometimes these relationships are born out of, I call it plantation economy, out of the plantation economy. You are a valuable slave when you are young, youthful. This is what the West push, youthfulness. When you become old on the plantation, you are no longer useful because you can't garner the same labor that you used to garner when you was very young. This is out of the plantation master's head. But in other cultures, older people are given esteem. They're much more respected. You know, so it's like, okay, I could earn 100, but when you get older, of course, you can make much less money. So is that to say you're going to be less valuable as you get older and grow older? And what about illness? What about sickness? What about mental disorders? All these things occur during the course of a relationship, and the internet has no answer for the complexities of a real actual relationship. They only say as long as he's making 600, six figures, six figures a year, I am content. But there are so many other factors that play into a real relationship that the internet doesn't have an answer for. I'll leave it there. Shirley, you can go ahead, sister.
Yeah, Sister Cheryl, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. So I was in Philly the past couple weeks, so I was kind of like in and out. I wasn't back home. I just traveled back home with my son. Oh yeah, that's what I was doing. Mm.
Okay, thanks for coming through this week, though.
Yeah, yeah, not a problem. So yeah, Judge Lynn Toler, yeah, she was on divorce court. That's it's something that came on television here in the States. I watched it all the time. Just thought it was interesting. Um, but I think with a relationship, I think I agree with a lot of the things everybody said on the panel. But a lot of people are very superficial, and usually when people go into relationships, they don't think about their values, what values they have in common. Like, for instance, this is something really small, but if you both agree that you're going to have children and one of you wants to send your children to school, but the other one wants to homeschool, well, that becomes a major issue. So it's things like this that we should be focused on. And I'm not saying that the money isn't important, but I think money is an important aspect. But I think you got to look at like long term. So if you get with a man and you require all of these things from him from the start, I don't think it's fair for women to require that from a man, especially if he's getting up on his feet. He has potential. He's doing a whole bunch of stuff, and just because in that moment he doesn't make that $100,000, that's a little it's a little shallow. I don't know if that's the right word. Um, but I think sometimes the woman may be making the most money at the time, and maybe later he makes a little bit more money. But I think money is important, but to make it the centerpiece of a relationship is definitely not the right thing to do. Um, and just putting the African aspect on that, we as people like yeah, we get into the capitalism. Who can make the most money? Who can work the hardest? It becomes the slave, the work hard Olympics. Which slave can work the hardest? And I feel like we kind of get into that, like, oh well, I'm doing this and that, and I'm doing this, I'm always doing something, and you're not doing nothing, so you must be lazy. Like, we get into this type of thing. So with relationships, you gotta like, one of the people in the relationship has to be willing to fall back a little bit because y'all both can't do like y'all. I mean, y'all both can, but at what cost? Like you can both have high power careers. You can both, make a whole lot of money. But if you're making a whole lot of money, like someone said, you're working all the time. You're working over 40-hour weeks. Like you don't really have time for children. You don't, the maybe some of your family members have the children, but you don't have that interaction with your children. And before you know it, you miss out on all the things that your children growing up, you miss out on a lot of things. And most parents, to be honest, and it's not really all their fault, is a lot of parents don't even know their children. That's why when COVID happened, they stayed home with their children. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know these kids. They don't know their own children. So I think it's important to, if you can, if you're in that position, to have one parent maybe stay home, maybe do focus on the children, but a lot of the times nowadays, you see people say, well, that person, whoever decides to stay home, they must be lazy. We get on to this thing. So I think it's like the slave Olympics, like who can work the hardest. So I think we need to come off of that as a people, and get back to like community based things instead of looking at material things. Because a lot of these women, they talk about, oh, well, he don't make enough money for me. These are usually the type of women that need to have their weaves done every 2 weeks and their nails done every 2 weeks and stuff like that. It's just very superficial things that you really don't need. You know what I mean? So you got to be careful, who you lay down with, who you get in a relationship with. Because if these are the things that they're valuing, then they're probably not for you. So I'll just leave it there.
I appreciate it. This is why I like for black women to come on the panel to give that other viewpoint as well, or to corroborate some of the thoughts that we gentlemen might have. So I appreciate that, Sister Cheryl. With that said, let me say what's up to Daily Affirmations by Pauline, who's in the building. Joe, who's also in the building as well. Thank you guys for being here. Shout out to Afro Native World for the $5 holler, as they say. Just a reminder of what Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 is. This is so true in reference to relationship jackpot. Let's welcome in Pan Mulattoism.
Peace, family. How y'all doing?
Uh, doing good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. And I try to be brief because I know it's a number of different panelists. Now I know that there are a lot of different accents on the panel, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think that you all may be Africans and or Caribbeans. My question is, and I'm not even disagreeing with your criticism of the dating dynamics within the U.S., but my question is, why not return to your countries of origin and date women there and help build your countries and, eradicate the brain drain that's taking place in your countries of origin?
Yo, who let this dickhead on here, man? Who let this dickhead on?
Y'all so stupid.
Obviously, it was me. Obviously, it was
Oh,
me.
fuck, I'm crying right now. Who let this dickhead on here?
I'm curious as to how Pan Mulattoism found Shoot the Breeze, by the way. Just out of curiosity.
All right, and just for the record, I asked a question and it was not asked. I was asked another question, but I'll answer your question if you answer mine. Can we make that deal?
No, nigga, hurry up, say what the
What
fuck
does
you
your
got to
question
say.
have to do with our question? That the shoot the
Yes,
breeze
and
panel.
I'll respond to the sister because she's the only one with a little bit of decorum. The reason I asked that question is because I've been throughout the African world and the Caribbean world, and I've seen the abject poverty. So my question is, why are you all laughing on the internet in the U.S. while your cousins are in squalor in the Caribbean and in Africa,
Well,
respectfully?
first of all, your first sentence is incorrect because not all of us are from Africa or the
Well, I
Caribbean.
wasn't talking to you, brother. I was
But
speaking
I'm
to
but
the
I'm talking
Africans
to
and
you
the
though. So you
Caribbeans.
come on our you come
Yes,
on
but
our
your
page
booty
you come on our
clapping.
page
You're
talking
booty
bullshit.
clapping
All
for
you are is
Africans.
come to troll, and that's why I'm
All right, go
responding to
ahead.
you with so much hostility because you're a troll, right?
And brother, do you realize
You're
you don't have the booty clap
first of
for
all, I'm
the
not your brother.
Africans?
First of all, I'm not your brother.
You don't
Let's
have
be
the booty
totally
clap
clear.
for the Africans. Let the Africans hold their
All
own
right, as
nuts.
I was saying, I'm not your
Let the
brother. Number
let
one.
the
Number
Africans hold
two,
their
you
own
come on here
nuts.
to troll, and
All
you're
right,
being
go ahead.
treated like a troll, asshole.
Don't you realize you don't have to hold the Africans nuts? They can do that themselves. So let the Africans and
You know what?
Caribbean
How about you let your mama hold mine?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Can we keep it on the topic? Like,
No, we got to get
like
rid. We got, you know, we got to deal. We got to deal hostile with people like that because he came to troll. Pan mulattoism.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Get out of
I
here,
had
man.
I'm
to,
sorry.
I had to, I had to get him up out of
Yeah, get
here.
out of here, man. He came to troll. That's all he came to.
Yeah.
He didn't come to add any value. He was come out the assumption, oh, we're tethers, or you know, the whole idea. Why don't you go back to your country? Like, nigga, this ain't your country either. Have you not looked at the news?
Yeah, it's
He sound Marcus Garvey the way he sound like he grew up in an apartment with lead paint is what it sound like.
I
I was always curious on when we would get individuals that have that point of view. I think it was a few weeks ago that I said that I actually encourage that, whether it's the Hebrew Israelites or FBA or splinter cells of ADOS, come on the show, because for me, I just want to actually see and hear if those sentiments, the xenophobic sentiments, actually are existing outside of Twitter Spaces, and it sounds like it is, but I'm not 100% sure on if he just wanted to do that for clout. But if I can, Koku, to answer his question that again doesn't really have anything to do with the topic as the relationship jackpot, but why some of us are here in the United States. I can only speak for myself, but I come from a household where my stepfather was a refugee. South Sudan didn't even exist at that time, but Sudan itself was pretty much trying to commit genocide of the Black peoples. So if you know any geopolitics, pan mulattoism, Sudan proper, the Sudan Khartoum, is pretty much like a Black-ish Arab state. So it's descendants of Black and Arab peoples, and they've, for centuries, they've had a big problem with the Black peoples of South Sudan. And so decades prior to South Sudan getting its independence in 2011, it was hard, very, very hard for South Sudanese peoples, present-day South Sudanese peoples, to be able to get jobs. My stepfather went to college for electrical engineering, and even he had a hard time getting work in the electrical engineering world. Firms would just completely discriminate against him, even though he spoke proper Sudanese Arabic. So that's one part. Another part is, when you're in these spaces where you're marginalized. I know that we hear that term a lot in the United States, but to actually be around it and see that with tangible things like, hey, you're going to apply for a home loan in an African country, and they're telling you, what is your last name? That like there's that there doesn't have to be a documentary for this. This is actually happening. Hey, what is your last name? Hey, do you believe in Islam? Well, I don't think that we're going to be giving you a home loan. These are critical things that could mean a difference in somebody saying that, do I want to remain in this country? Second part is that why Africans are in African and Caribbeans are in the United States is because the United States has armies, active armies and military bases in these countries. So it's like, if you want to blame Black immigrants for being in the country, ask the military that your taxes go to, why are you there in the first place? And then maybe we can have a conversation. I can go on and on. I'd rather not, just because I'm sure everybody else has their piece to say, but maybe, just maybe, it answers your question a little bit on why, we're not back home. Me, myself, my plans are to go back home. I'm a Kenyan. Both my parents are Kenyan, and we have an awesome president. And I'm not just saying that just because I want to go back home, but I feel like he's in the right direction versus the previous president before him, William Ruto. So
No, that was a great response, brother. And can I ask you respectfully, don't you realize that by coming to the U.S., you are literally paying taxes to the same U.S. government that you claim is destabilizing your country of origin? How does that help?
yeah. So one of the things that you can do to offset that is just like myself, you fund. I don't know if you're familiar with the word remittance, but it's basically sending money back to people that are not in the same land or the jurisdiction
Yes,
that
of
you're
course,
in.
of course.
Okay,
But
so just to
brother,
give
don't you realize that you spend more money in the countries such as the U.S. that you leave to, or the countries that you flee to, such as the US, such as Canada, such as the UK, you invest more you invest more money here than you do to your country of origin, brother. Remittance is essentially a tip, but you've invested more into the host country that you fled to. So I'm asking, how does that solve the problem, brother? And I'm genuinely
here's
asking that respectfully. Go ahead.
here's some stats just to bring it up because you talk about the money factor and hey,
Yes.
it's often that African and Caribbean immigrants are spending more in these countries of the West than they are by the remittances. That may or may not be true. I think
Right.
that's a case by case basis. But just a stat for you. In 2022, it was reported by Western Union, Boss Revolution, PayPal that over 100 billion US dollars was sent by the African diaspora to these
Yes.
African countries. 100 billion. I just want to let you understand.
No, I'm
100
familiar with that. Yes.
that's significant. Some of these African
But
countries they
but
only
hear
have
me
a
out, brother.
GDP. Yeah, go
Hear
ahead.
me out. My point is that number one, is nothing to be proud of to be dependent on the U.S. economy, and number two, what you omitted is the amount of taxes that these same diasporans pay to the U.S. government, to the U.K. government, to the Canadian government. Matter of fact, I was just in the Philippines and in China. Full disclosure, I have Asian ancestry. I was just in Asia. I even seen Africans over there, brother. So the question is, in order to eradicate the brain drain, don't you understand that it's beneficial for Africans to return to their countries of origin? Nigeria could be better than the US. Nigeria could be better than China, but it will never be better than these countries if you continue to flee. You have to understand that, brother.
I mean, again, this is a case by case basis. Not every African country is, going for individual reasons such as, hey, I might not be able to get a job in my country. Some people are actually fleeing turmoil. Some people are actually saying, hey, if I go back because of my last name, I'm not from the tribe that is in current military power, it's going to be an issue for me. So I would, if I was you, again, you're a grown man, it sounds like, so you can take upon yourself and do what you want. But, I would ask myself, like, is it life and death for some of these people to go back to these African countries? That's one. Number two, it is a free world, especially if the country that you're immigrating from lacks immigration laws and you have the money to go ahead and take your family or yourself out of these places in the Caribbean and Africa. Why not? Why should people just be
Let me answer that. Let me answer that. And brother, we cannot get anywhere if we don't acknowledge each other's points. When you say something true, I'm able to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that in the long run, it does not benefit Africans to flee Africa. Additionally, and this is the point I have to stand on, you all as Africans, when you come to these nations that you flee to, you are investing more of your time, of your labor, of your capital into these Western nations that you criticize. You're investing more here than you are into Africa. And in closing, brother, descendants of U.S. chattel slaves, we know about being persecuted by our government, but we never fled in mass numbers. We stayed in the U.S. and fought our way off of slave plantations. So you have no excuse to flee your country.
I'm glad that you said that.
Jackadale, can we stop entertaining this dude? Jesus fucking Christ, man.
One last thing. He said that descendants of American slaves were, they never left.
No, I said in mass numbers, brother.
In mass number. Okay.
I
was gonna say, because Haiti would like to have a conversation with you, but it sounds like
And
maybe
speak about the numbers. Speak about the numbers of us that went to Haiti.
I don't have the specific numbers, but Frederick
Exactly.
Douglass, when he was again when
hold on, Jackadero, stop 1 second, because this whole idea of Black Americans never fled is not true. What is the
I
Great
say in mass
Migration?
numbers. You're not
What
listening
is the
because you're
what is the great
emotional.
what is the Great Migration? How many millions of people left
We
the
didn't leave the
South?
country. We
But
didn't
it
leave the
doesn't
country.
matter though. You're
It
saying you
does
didn't leave the
matter.
country. It doesn't matter. You left the South for better conditions in the North.
In the same country, right?
1879, they
Is
left
that
the
in the same
South for
country?
better in the West.
Is that in the
The
same
Underground
country?
Railroad left the United States for Canada and Mexico and the Bahamas
Not in mass numbers.
and Spanish Florida. So the idea that Black people just stayed and fought is absolutely not true.
Let me respond to
entire
that, brother.
idea that
Let me
Black people
respond to
stay
that,
in
brother.
America are some bullshit where we're just stronger and everything else. That's simply not true.
Let me ask you a question. Total, how
Hold
many
on,
Black
hold on,
Americans?
hold on,
How many
hold on,
Black
hold on,
Americans left the U.S.?
I'm
Checkmate.
Black American. I would love to leave the U.S.
But how many of us actually left?
Pan mulattoism. Hold
Yes,
on a
brother.
second. There was a question asked you, and you said you was going to respond to the question
Yes,
asked. By the way, we're not discussing this topic you brought here. We're
exactly,
discussing something else. But how did you get to be here?
exactly. And literally, I typed in StreamYard and I went through the list, and your page is one of the pages that popped up. Now I answered your question directly. Let me ask your brother, the Black American brother that was just speaking.
No, pan mulattoism. You don't run the show here. You're a
Well, I
guest.
never claimed I did, brother.
You're a guest here, right?
Yes.
And like
So
I
welcome me
said,
in as a guest.
we're not having that. The discussion you came and interrupted. That's the discussion we're having, right?
So we're speaking about dating. I asked a question about dating that was never asked. My question was, if you have so many criticisms about the dating life
Brother,
in
we can
Western
criticize
nations,
who we want to criticize.
no, you could do that. I'm asking why not go back to your country of origin and date there?
And the thing
Simple
is,
question.
we never specifically said, for example, when we
let him
talk
answer
about
that.
Black Americans,
Let him
we weren't
answer that.
saying
Let him answer
Americans. Just keep the fuck out of here, man.
that. Go date in your country of origin. Why not do that?
Can I say
Simple
something?
question.
Can I say something? Can I say
Yeah, go
something?
ahead, Buana. I got
So,
I got pan mulattoism up out of here
oh,
because number one, I don't like the continuous fleeing talk.
yes,
I know
yes,
that's the FBA talking point, and this guy's half Asian or some shit. I don't want to
yes,
hear that shit. But go
no
ahead.
problem. The, the only question I wanted to ask him is why didn't the president of the United States marry a woman from the United States rather than going to where's Melania Trump from again? One of these we saw object poverty. One
Slovenia.
yeah, which is a abject poverty stricken European country. He decided to find a wife over there and bring it to the United States. He didn't find FBW woman. So you first have to start there first before you start attacking your brothers first. And there's no questions on that because Melania Trump, her first language is not even English. So I wanted to ask him a few questions. And when he talks about the Caribbean and Africa, as if everybody in the Caribbean and Africa are economic refugees and starving. Brother, I don't know where you've been. I don't know who you've been around. But contrary to popular belief, not everybody in the Caribbean and Africa are broke. In fact, some people who come to America, you may not know, have a bit of money in their pocket. I don't know if you know that, but you need to maybe sit down and talk to someone who is not in your circle, in that echo chamber of yours. I would only say that.
Yeah, good stuff. Does anyone have any last words for this first prompt and this interruption that we dealt with there?
We got to be who we have. But Pan mulattoism, this is not even. They're not even trying anymore. Pan mulattoism is funny as fuck. But no, some people just come to troll. This was not done. His questions were not in good faith. And anybody with any type of historical knowledge, right, will understand that. And then, first of all, we never specified what we were criticizing. We were criticizing the commodification. I was talking about late stage capitalism, the commodification of relationships. I never said anything about what nationality the person had to be from, right? That was never in my statement. I don't. But when we say what we say, right? A lot of these FBA people like to come with this ahistorical nonsense, and we got to combat it every time we run up against it. Whenever we have something, especially the whole thing "we didn't flee" type of nonsense, because black people was running for their lives all up and down United States, into Mexico, into Canada. It's ridiculous how they like to have this thing of, oh, we didn't flee in mass numbers, because you couldn't. Because even right now, black people can't leave the U.S. because we don't have the money. We're poor. But anyway, that distraction. I know Jacadero was trying to talk to dude in good faith. Man, it's a waste of time. You got to be hostile with your enemies.
Yeah,
I hear it. I hear it, man.
yeah, I actually appreciate it. And by the way, the reason why I let him back on was in hopes that you'd realize it's a serious conversation, and that you would change up switch up your style and come and have a good faith conversation. But that clearly wasn't going to be the case. But I like how Jacadero kind of spoke to the guy. One other point the guy made too. He said to Jacadero, if the U.S. is disabling y'all's countries like y'all claim is happening, dog, the U.S. been doing that, number one. And we're going to talk about it tonight, what Trump is now starting to do in the Caribbean right now. If you see a bunch of people not fleeing, but leaving Venezuela and stuff like that, there's a reason for that, right? But we'll talk more about it tonight. With that said, man, let's go on to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2. I hope we discussed that first prompt sufficiently before the distraction, but if not, we can always circle back to it in a future episode.